Welcome to the Sharpest College Football Podcast, our Big Ten conference preview. This is part two. Hopefully you caught part one. If you didn't, go listen to that first for the setup. This is who is in part one and part two. We are doing this in alphabetical order. This is going to be a little less friendly than part one since all three of our teams are in part two here. I just realized that. And we will start with the defending national champs, but not the defending Big Ten champs, the Ohio State Buckeyes. New offensive coordinator, Brian Hartline. You might remember him as the 2023 offensive coordinator. New quarterback, Julian Sayin, who I believe is a redshirt freshman. They, despite losing decent receivers all the time as they do, they have the third best wide receiver room by BuckMetrics coming into this season. New defensive coordinator, we talked about this on a prior episode, Matt Patricia. Pretty sure he wasn't hired for his NFL acumen. I'm just guessing. They have the second lowest improvement metric in the Big Ten and a new defensive coordinator. That is troubling. Not to spoil Washington, I think I'm higher on higher on Washington than most people. That Week 5 game at Washington is going to be fascinating to me. It's their first road game. It's the first conference road game of the season. You've got, I'll just be generous, not an awesome offensive coordinator. Now, there's a lot of Ryan Day in this program, so take that for what it's worth. I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Matt Patricia, but you're not going to be better than Jim Knowles in that defense last year. So I think this might be a closer game than people think. The 10.5 seems crazy to me. They don't have the toughest schedule, but I don't know. There's not a lot of wiggle room if it's 10.5, considering you open with Texas, you have Penn State, now you get both those at home, and then you're at Michigan, who's beaten you the last whatever years.
4 in a row now.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief here. I think this is overvalued. There's a lot of questions for me. And believe me, I'm an Ohio State fan as much as somebody else in the Big Ten can be. But I've just got a lot of questions here. Robert, am I just being a little too tough or paranoid? Am I being reasonable?
No, I honestly don't know why Texas is the underdog in that game, honestly. You've got a very strong Texas team. You've got Archie Manning, which I feel is a massive upgrade. We haven't talked about Texas yet. We will talk about Texas. But in my opinion, obviously Texas and Ohio State played in the CFP. Ohio State won that game. They did cover the spread. I think what was the final score in that game? 28-14. That was closer than the score said. It was basically 21-14 for a while in that game. It was a very close game. But I think Texas it made a massive improvement in quarterback, and Julian Sayin is probably a downgrade in quarterback as compared to their quarterback. So it was Will Howard last year. I don't like their defensive coordinator, and I don't like their offensive coordinator, and I don't like their quarterback. So this is now okay. To be fair, it is Ohio State though, right? Mm-hmm. But again, like I've already grabbed the Texas plus 3.5. And then at that point, then you're just trying to find second loss. And then it's like at Washington, never fun to travel cross country. At Illinois, hey, is Illinois good? I don't know. We'll find out. At Penn State, they'll probably win that game due to just sheer ineptitude from Franklin. He'll probably find a way to throw that game. And then like at Michigan, I've actually already bet the under 10.5. Apparently, the over 10.5 is one of the most bet futures in all of college football. I have no idea why. That seems extremely premature. I feel like that's people just saying Ohio State's the best team and they're the best last year and they've got to be the best team now. So I don't believe that. I don't buy it for a second. So give me the under here. The question is just for me is how far does this team fall? Is this a team that goes 10-2? Can this team get to 9-3? If you lose to either at Washington or Penn State or something in there as well, there's a chance this team could fall out of the playoff. Now, it's difficult to see it, but there's a non-zero chance of that, though. So I'm penciling them in as one of my Big Ten playoff teams, but, like, for me, it's borderline. I don't think they're the top of the Big Ten anymore. I just don't think people have quite realized that yet. So, yeah. I'm, like, and again, we talked about it earlier this year, right? Just a few minutes ago. A few days ago for listeners, we're recording all these at the same time. They should have lost to Nebraska. They did lose to Oregon. Phil still has an issue there. He actually highlights it as a win there at Oregon, but he screwed that up.
They lost in the Rose Bowl game.
Yeah. They beat them. They lost to Oregon, but they beat Oregon in the game that mattered. So I guess they get the back counted win for that. At Penn State was also pretty close. Like Indiana was close for a bit. They lost to Michigan. They should have easily beaten Michigan. They got a really dud Oregon team in the Rose Bowl. Had that not been a dud Oregon team, had Oregon not come out flat, that probably might have been a much closer game. I thought last year was going to be the year where we finally see this Oregon team, or this Ohio State team, take a step back, and they didn't. But now it's going to happen at some point, and I think this might be that year. I'm going to go under, and I'm going to be iffy on whether or not this team makes the playoff or not. There's an non-zero chance that if they pick up 3 losses, they're not in the playoff.
Yeah. Isaiah, is there a chance with Matt Patricia and the magic that he brings and losing a ton from the defense? All right. This is, even if you recruit as well as Ohio State, this is a lot to lose. And you're losing the best defensive coordinator and you're bringing in, I don't know what Matt Patricia is, but could this defense be just kind of like average by Big Ten standards?
Yeah, the thing about Matt Patricia is, okay, he was an awful head coach in the pros, so we don't even need to think about that. He was a pretty good defensive coordinator, and he was playing, again, pro ball. It's a different ball, and he was playing with Bill Belichick and prime Patriots. Now, Ohio State's roster in general is as close most years as you're going to get to the Patriots in college football. But, this is a reload on defense. It's a big reload. They were number 1 in scoring defense last year. They were number 1 in total defense last year. 8 of their guys drafted in the top 180 of the NFL draft. But I don't care how good you are at reloading and how good you are at recruiting. You don't just pick that back up. And then the big one is losing. It's not even necessarily that you have Matt Patricia. It's that you lost Jim Knowles.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I hate. Gosh, it's like 2 of my best friends live in Columbus and are OSU fans. Another one of my good friends is an OSU fan. I'm going to make no friends here right off the bat, and I'm going to have to apologize to them. I am also on the under 10.5. I'm on Texas plus the points and Texas money line in week 1. This is not to say this is going to be a bad team. I have to stress this enough. I said this with Indiana, right? If Indiana loses a couple games, that doesn't make them a bad team. They just won a national championship. The pressure is off Ryan Day, except for the most lunatic of the lunatic fringe. Even if you want to try to discount Oregon or whatever in the college football playoff, you want to discount the fact that they played postseason Tennessee. Okay, that's fine, whatever. But they still won a national title. And by the way, the 4 games they played in the playoffs, I don't know if it's been a long time, maybe Joe Burrow, LSU, since I've seen a team look that dominant. But they looked so pedestrian in the regular season. And that team was better than this team, I think. Better quarterback, way better defense. Now you got Jeremiah Smith coming back. He's a cheat code, so that's good for the offense. You've got some nice, obviously you've got plenty of nice pieces as offensive weapons, right? Good wide receiver core, picking up a nice tight end transfer, Matt Clare, who was at Purdue. Like most things at Purdue, he was misused, but he is a really good player. But I'm just looking at this schedule, man. I think they're losing. I wouldn't even be surprised if that Texas game is not the last time I looked at a non-conference game like this for Ohio State, it was when Oregon played them. A couple of years ago, Oregon played them in Columbus, and I had bet Oregon money line spread, and I was like, I feel it is more likely that this game gets out of hand in favor of Oregon than it is OSU wins the game. That's how I felt about it, and it did. Oregon blew them out, and I feel the same way. I think it's more likely that Texas just comes in and flexes on them. That's tough to say, and I'm sure I'll get ripped on if that's not true, but something feels weird. Again, not a bad team. They're not going to be bad. The bottom is not going to fall out, but there's just so many games at Washington, at Illinois. Like we said, they're going to beat Penn State because James Franklin isn't going to win that game. But at Michigan, Michigan was a 22-point underdog last year, and that was in Columbus. And again, I don't want to discount Michigan in that game, but Ryan Day Ohio State lost that game because it was like they had something to prove. Like Ryan Day wasn't happy with winning the game. He had to prove that they were the bigger, more physical, tougher team, and they decided that they were going to run the football the entire game, even though they had the best wide receiver in college football. I don't get it. But all you need, if we assume that they're going to lose the Texas game, all you need is one more loss.
Yeah.
And I think if Texas kind of flexes on them, like I think they might, I think that loss is quite probable. Like, whether it's a team that we are high on, like Washington, or potentially Illinois, or Michigan, just decides to like just continue this like crazy stretch of dominance over them, all you need is one. Or maybe something really stupid happens. Like, it hasn't happened to Ryan Day yet, but like maybe he has his Urban Meyer game where they just don't show up randomly. I don't think that's as likely given who their other opponents are, but you can't rule it out. So yeah, if I only need them to take 2 losses and the juice is only 130 and everybody and their mother is betting the over, I feel good with my under 10.5. So yeah, now I'm going to have to hide myself and not put on a disguise when I go to Columbus next year.
I have a feeling you have to do that every year.
I'm normally relatively welcome there, but that segment that I just gave might have overstayed my welcome now.
There you go. No, it's weird. I think they're fortunate that they missed that whole group of USC, Indiana, and Nebraska, where it's just like those ones that are just a little more losable than some of these ones that would be more surprising. I don't know if the number would move because I don't think that's the sharpest money in the over here.
It's hard to find like the embarrassing like Urban Meyer game. Like, I don't see a 2018 Purdue or a 2017 Iowa on here because we're not really high on Minnesota, and that's in Columbus. I won't spoil Wisconsin. They're not losing at Purdue. Hey, the one time you don't have to worry about going to Purdue and getting embarrassed, you do not have to worry about it this time. And then you get UCLA and Rutgers. Like, my gosh, if you lose one of those games at home, then yeah, maybe Ryan Day's right back on the hot seat again.
Yep. All right.
Actually, one thing I'll say this quickly before we go. When Isaiah was saying hit something, I think is like last year they beat Nebraska. It was ugly. They were 25-point favorites and they won 21-17. I think like that game where it's like they're heavy favorites and then they scrape out a win. I feel like we're going to see 5 of those, and it's just going to be 5 random teams, and it's going to be like, okay, yeah, the spread against Penn State is like -2.5 or something, and it's okay, we're 15-point favorites against Illinois, we win by a last-second field goal or something, or okay, we scrape out like a touchdown win against Rutgers. Like it might be this kind of Ohio State team where because the defense is bad, it's going to be you can actually score on them, and because their offense isn't good, they're not going to be able to score at will like they normally can. So they're going to have to grind out some of these wins, and I think that the true value for Ohio State is going to be when you see those massive spreads. It's going to be figuring out, hey, is this an actual catch? Hey, okay, is 15 points way too much here? Is 21 points too much here? Mm-hmm. Or when you see them like 6.5-point favorites, you'd be like, okay, yeah, that's the week to do that. That's where the value is going to be on Ohio State this year.
It's basically the opposite of what we did with Michigan last year, because we said at the beginning of the season, we said the market is going to be way too high on Michigan, and you're going to get a lot of value betting against them on spreads, and you did. They were only a 3-point underdog to Texas in Ann Arbor, and they got embarrassed. I think it's going to be the same exact thing. The market is going to know that the public is going to see this as defending national champions, and again, like, you're getting that line with OSU favored against Texas at home. I bet you're going to get a really inflated spread when they go to Washington, even though Washington we like, and it's at Washington. Like, I'm going to love some of the value on some of those plays, and it's going to be like the same thing with Michigan, where it's like you fade these big spreads, or it's the opposite of that, but you fade the big spreads until they give you a reason not to.
Yeah, definitely. It's just that kind of stage of the program that happens to all the teams that win a national title. It happens. All right, Robert's team. Robert, you'll be very glad to know I made a very long case here about the Ducks. So
a smaller font,
My
did.
High school English teacher is just screaming at the amount of text on here, Buck.
So, Big Ten champions. Also, I mentioned there was a lot of luck in this conference. I had them as the luckiest last year, too. They had the top offense in all of FBS by my ratings. New quarterback, Dante Moore. You might remember, Robert, this guy set the world on fire until he got in Pac-10 play, or Pac-12 play, pardon me. 190 Apex non-conference, and got about a quarter of that once we got to Pac-12 games. It was a good Pac-12 season. I will give him that. But is he going to be the same quarterback? No. Will Stein's proven himself, but I'll put it this way. I'm not sure what the ceiling is. I'll put it that way. It's uncertain. This was going to be a concern already, especially for a team that recruits and portals so well as Oregon. This number is inclusive of Evan Stewart, who's now out for 2025. So I'm really concerned about the wide receiving room. The top returning wide receiver is Kenyon Sadiq with a Ryan of 135. That's troubling. The offensive line, one starter, one backup, 3 transfers in. Now, I'm a little salty about this. One of them is from my school. But that 3, I actually got this from an Oregon guy. 2 you can do. 3 is where it gets tricky in terms of just integrating that 3rd transfer in 1 year. We'll see about that. The defensive rating, I mentioned this all last year. Their defense was good, but not nearly as good as people thought last year. Look, I'm not going to argue. Look, you're in green against the pass and the run, so it's not like you're bad. You're a good defense. I just don't think this. I think this defense was thought to be elite, and it wasn't. 8 is like the second cut. Just for reference, Texas's rating was 17, and Ohio State, that we just went over, was a 13. This is interesting. Bear Alexander is going to start at defensive tackle. I bring that up because now he knows Lanning. Lanning probably was involved in recruiting him, even though he didn't play for Lanning at Georgia. But it's just interesting that Oregon is starting a guy who was, I think, 3rd at tackle at USC, and that was a position that was of quite big concern before he transferred out, then even more after he transferred out. But he couldn't beat out guys like the 3 of us on the defensive line last year. They've got this tricky at Penn State, home versus Indiana, and they have a week off in between, which is nice. This is, I think, their toughest stretch right here, obviously. The season win total is 10.5. The under's taking some money. I just think 10 is the right number here. 10.5 just seems high. I think probably the under should be shaded a little more. I'm not the most objective guy here, but I've got questions, but every year I have questions about this program. And every year Dan Lanning just gives me a face full of whatever he wants to shove in my face. So I'll give you the honor this time, Robert. Shove it in my face now.
So here's the thing. I think in some ways this program reminds me, at least this year, a little bit of some of the things you said about Ohio State. It's less concerning than Ohio State's because we don't have Matt Patricia as our defensive coordinator. So that's a positive already. That being said, though, there are some issues, though. Also lost a quarterback to the NFL, just like Ohio State did. But Dante Moore has a track record of doing fun things. Not necessarily always good things, but they were at least fun when he was at UCLA. That being said, though, he has sat for an entire year. He sat for an entire year, been on the Oregon bench. I'm sure he has learned an absolute ton from Dan Lanning, the offensive coordinator, from Dylan Gabriel. And Dylan Gabriel should have been a Heisman, considered for the Heisman, but wasn't because, again, I don't understand the rules to the Heisman Trophy, but whatever, that's fine. That's another rant, but this is the thing. It's that I actually think Dylan Gabriel in some ways was actually limited as a quarterback. They may have had the best offense, but they did it in a very balanced way. Dylan Gabriel, like there weren't a ton of highlight throws where all of a sudden you just saw these like 40-yard bombs that you had with like Bo Nix a couple of seasons ago. It was always, okay, here's a screen pass, 10-yard check downfield, and that's because they didn't need to do that. They didn't need that explosiveness in the offense. They didn't need it. They were fine. Now, they struggled early on in the season last year, as we remember. That horrible memory of that Idaho and that Boise State game. But, like, this is the thing. They figured it out. They got it together. I think you can attribute some of that to the coaching. I think this team could actually benefit significantly from having a really good – I think Dante Moore has a much higher ceiling than Dylan Gabriel did, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. You get to play him against a Montana State and Oklahoma State team and Northwestern, and even Oregon State. Like, the first 4 are pretty easy. That's a pretty decent ramp up. You should be able to test out a lot of things. None of those should be giving you any real trouble at all. Boise State was technically a playoff team last year, so the fact that they only beat them 37-34 was concerning at the time, but then at the end of the season, that near win or that near loss looked a lot better than it did on week 2. So this is the thing. So I think this team has a higher ceiling with Dante Moore. As for the over-under, yeah, I mean, you've got Indiana. If Indiana is better this year, then that's a question mark. Penn State, You've got USC could be something as well, and at Washington that also could be concerning as well. So I don't want to touch the over under, but like I think this team will be good. I suspect they should be able to take care of Penn State. Indiana would be a question mark. They should be able to take care of Indiana, but like Washington, that's a rivalry game. They really took it to Washington last year for revenge for the year before. I think Washington's going to want revenge on them for that. So could this team go undefeated and be in the Big Ten championship game again? Yes. I just don't know. I think this is definitely one of the top teams in the Big Ten. I have more faith in this team than in an Ohio State team. But again, it's really going to depend on Dante Moore has a higher ceiling, but how high is that ceiling? Are we looking at? I think he's probably going to be a closer quarterback to, say, a Bo Nix than he will be to Dylan Gabriel. And if he can have some amazing plays and do some really cool stuff, then yeah, this team could be really good this year. This team could potentially be as good, if not even flashier than last year's team. If Dante, because here's the thing, right? They really, they were just a good, powerful team, right? Like, they didn't have here's a 40-yard touchdown bomb. They didn't have that last year. But if you imagine last year's Oregon team with an even more explosive offense, it's scary.
Yeah, I need the wide receiver room to prove it to me, I guess, is the difference there. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
I'm just, Matt, the thing I don't like is, to me, for all the good they did in the regular season, undefeated, Big Ten champion, they were my Big Ten, if you remember, they were my Big Ten champion pick that I gave out. But I had firmly gone into the playoffs last year saying that if this team doesn't do it for Dan Lanning, what team is going to do it? And they didn't. Not only did they not do it, but they played one game and got embarrassed. Now, unfortunately, that one game was a game they shouldn't have had to play if the seeding made sense.
Yeah.
You ran up against the juggernaut that was Ohio State when Ryan Day remembered he had good players. That kind of sucked. It's interesting, Buck, that you put them as the luckiest team because we were talking about Oregon and Ohio State. And I was in London at the time, so this game was in the middle of the absolute night, and I was trying my best to stay awake for it. And I just remember how that game ended. Was Oregon kicks a field goal, they go up, and then Ohio State's driving down the field, and they're in field goal range, and Will Howard decides he's going to run with it. And the clock expired. He pulled the Dak Prescott.
Or Joe Milton.
But they were in field goal range. They could have won that game, but they just let the clock run out. So that's weird. And then anybody just remember that unwatchable rock fight against Wisconsin?
I saw the score and I didn't remember that. I don't remember them having a game that close last year.
It was just unwatchable. I mean, it was awful. I don't know what happened there. Because it was a game where I could firmly tell that Wisconsin wasn't going to win it, but it wasn't because Oregon was going to take over. Wisconsin was just refusing to do anything. So, I don't know. All this to say is I hear Robert's case for them being really good. I hear Buck's case for them having some issues. I think the schedule helps in that, your toughest game is at Penn State. You're still probably going to be a top 10 team, which means that you have the better James Franklin until proven otherwise. You get Indiana at home. I think the way I look at that game is if that was a neutral field or in Bloomington, I'd really like Indiana. But I don't feel good about picking anybody to come into Eugene and win. So, that really is a game you should win, even though we think Indiana should be good. Then you got a stretch of games that you should have no problem with: Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa. Even at Iowa, I don't know. Maybe Kinnick Magic. I don't know. Minnesota at home, you should win. USC, we'll see, but it's at home. That at Washington game scares me.
Mm-hmm.
That at Washington game scares me. I didn't play, but I'll be honest, I didn't play Oregon. I don't feel really anything. I basically feel nothing on them. I don't feel a play on their win total. I don't feel a play on anything as far as the postseason goes or shots. I think we just see on them. This is going to be a good team. I have no doubt about that. I don't know if the value is there for me to make a bet on them.
Yeah, the one thing about this, I remember on this luck metric here, it surprised me because I didn't remember them having, oh my gosh, blatantly lucky games. And the thing was, statistically, the Boise game was a coin flip. I think there were actually post-game a little bit should have been a loss. Remember that they have a couple of fluky touchdowns. I think one of them was a punt return or something. But other of them were actually really good signs. It was they were undefeated and they won every game where they were an 80-point or 80% win probability. You take that over 10 wins, and that's 2 lucky wins that you're going to have basically over a season if you're consistent. So I'd say that's not luck, that's ripe for regression. There's other ones that make sense. That one's not one of them. And it makes sense. There's not predictive as much as other ones are. All right, one thing too. That Oregon game at Iowa was fascinating, by the way. That's going to be interesting. Really interesting. All right. Just talking about Penn State. They have the top returning full-time starter in the Big Ten. James Franklin finally stumbled into the right offensive coordinator in Andy Kotelnicki, boosted their offensive rating by almost 10 points. They're the only Big Ten team that is well above standard in returning starts and improvement metric, which is scary considering how good their offense was last year. They basically won the portal as it came to wide receivers. Of the top 32 portal wide receivers, they got 3 of them. One of them from my school, Kyron Hudson, really good receiver, just was not going to be a number 1 or 2. Definitely a space for him here. Their receivers were not great. They had a beautiful tight end who's now on to Robert's NFL, but the wide receiver room is going to be a huge upgrade. Defensively, this is about as good as it gets, aside from just elite. 11th in run defense, 12th in pass defense. And then, guess what? You get the best defensive coordinator in college football. They have when you have Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana, that's not a fun stretch. Yeah, you have a little bit of a break here, but geez, it's not like they really miss any of they don't dodge any bullets, I'll put it that way. The season win total is 10.5. I guess that's reasonably valued, if anything. Maybe a little bit overvalued. If I just look at this page right here, I can't figure out what the team's weakness is. Now, I think 2 other people in this podcast have a quick answer to that. Isaiah, I'll let you answer it.
That's the amazing thing, right? Because I was going through the same thing. Like, I'm looking at this roster and I'm like, I personally think Drew Howler is a little bit overhyped. I don't think he was the reason that their offense was as good as it was, but he's not he's clearly one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Check. Mm-hmm. Good offensive coordinator. Check. Probably best running back room in the country with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Check. Offensive line, check. Their big bugaboo on offense has always been wide receiver. We took care of that in the portal. Best defensive coordinator in college football, check. Defense, great. Like, even the schedule. Oregon at home, Indiana at home. It just sucks that obviously you have to go to Ohio State, but if we're being honest, we're never going to pick them to beat Ohio State, even in Happy Valley, until they do it, right? We know what the weakness is here. Dude, if you can't do it this year, it's just like Oregon last year, right, in the postseason. If James Franklin, man, if you can't do it this year, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't need Josh Pate in my head telling me that everybody is a special flower and that Penn State just always loses to top 10 team, so they're actually good. Like, you're Penn State, and you're coming into this season ranked in probably the top 3 teams in college football. You need to beat somebody. You need to beat Oregon, or you need to beat Ohio State, or maybe if Indiana gets there, you need to beat you got to get one of those wins. You cannot exit this regular. I don't even care if you make the playoff. You cannot exit this season with losses to. I'm going to be honest. Like, you can't exit the season with losses to Oregon and Ohio State. That's the way I see it. That's not a slight to Indiana, so Indiana fans don't think that's like a slight to you. But like, we're just looking at who I think will be in the top 10 at this time. You have to get one. He only has one in his he's been at Penn State forever now, and he has one top 10 win, and it came on a fluky blocked punt return touchdown in 2016 against Ohio State.
Return, but yeah.
Oh yeah, field goal return, correct.
Which is even flukier, by the way.
Yeah, with 4 minutes left in the game,
mm-hmm.
You got to do it, man. And like, the thing that does make me uncomfortable too. Everyone's looking, and like I've been hearing, it's like they went deep into the playoffs last year and they're returning all this talent. I'm like, okay, but they played SMU at home, and then they played Boise State. And not to be like, I liked Boise State. I liked what they did. Obviously, we know how good Genty was. but you played two G4 teams or G5 teams, like end of the day. You could not have gotten a more favorable draw. And even in those games, like Robert, I think we were texting like during the SMU game. We were like, "What is James Franklin doing?" Like, even when they were ahead, he was making dumb decisions. And then the Notre Dame game, it was like you could have won that game, and then you crapped yourself, like you always do. You know. So I will be completely honest with you. Like, I feel like the biggest thing that I hate about this Penn State team is how much hype they're getting. The fact that they're in the top 5, top 3 preseason, it just makes me so uncomfortable. So I have a small play. It's not a full play. I have a small play on the under 10.5. And it is essentially, I'm calling it my Nebraska play. Prove me wrong. If you go out and you go 11-1, and that means you beat Oregon and Indiana, because I'm sorry, you're not beating Ohio State. I refuse to accept that as a possibility until I see it happen. But if you go at 11-1 and that over 10.5 hits, James Franklin, you get it. You showed me wrong. That's fine. But I'm gonna keep fading that until it hits. Remember, they only had one of those opponents last year because no longer in the Big Ten East, and they missed Oregon in the regular season. So they only had Ohio State, and they lost. And then they played Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, and they lost.
True. I will push back just a little bit on one point. I think you make a fair point that Drew Aller might not be as good as he's getting hyped for. I would push back and say I think he's got the offensive coordinator that is able to get the most out of everything around him and create the mirage, if you will. He had one guy on that offense that he could throw to, and he made himself millions of dollars. Now he's got probably two guys he can throw to this year. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that I thought that Aller was bad or
Yeah.
even overrated. I think the way I see them is that he does not need to be a guy who's going to win them the games with his arm.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Because they found a way to do that. It was just throw the ball to Ty Warren. Don't overthink it. This guy is just a badass.
Yeah, that was it last year. Warren's going.
Yeah.
But you have the ads, right? Like it's just make the smart play. If it makes sense, don't make the James Franklin decisions. Make the smart decision.
On that topic, Robert, how different is it going to be for James Franklin to be rated this high, be the hunted until he basically loses his second game?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? If they don't go, like, it's weird because, again, like as we felt last year, State backed their way into the Big Ten championship game. The Big Ten championship game was very likely going to be Oregon-Ohio State rematch until Ohio State lost to Michigan, at which point it's like, oh, okay, I guess Penn State's in there now. And then because they were in there, then they got SMU in that game, had 2 or 3 interceptions to Penn State, and Penn State did nothing with those interceptions. That's what we were talking about, Isaiah. And it was just like, basically they were gifted so many points in the game, and sometimes they were just like, okay, we're just going to not do anything at all for like entire possessions. And then you get Boise State, which I guess arguably shouldn't have been there because they were just there because of the running back, and they were just like, fine, we're just not going to let Ashton G&T run for 150 yards this game. And then it's, sure, go ahead, quarterback, Boise State quarterback, throw. And I can't. Okay, cool, we win that game. And then you get Notre Dame, and then you lose that game, which is a very winnable game, and Notre Dame was a bit overhyped as well. So this is the thing. They had a very easy path to the semifinal, but like everybody knows that if they had gone to the final, Ohio State would have beaten them. This wasn't a particularly difficult call either way. So I know they're really hyped, and Drew Aller is really hyped. I think he's a good quarterback, but like people are legitimately talking about him as number 1 overall draft choice. Like, good. And I think that's a bit much. I think he's good, but and again, maybe with a better offensive coordinator and with a good defensive coordinator, right? Like, maybe this team is just that good. Maybe this is just the Penn State team that's just so absolutely loaded at every position, and they have the best coaches and all this stuff, and this is the year they just steamroll everyone. This could be like Georgia 2022, or like Alabama with Bryce Young those couple of years ago, right? Where it's just like they're just so much better than every team, and they just steamroll everyone. I don't think that exists in college football anymore, But maybe that's what Penn State did. They just said, we're putting in all our chips this year. We're all in with Drew Aller in his final year. He's going to the NFL next year. Throw everything in this year, and then it's rebuilding year next year either way. Maybe that they're just that this year. Maybe this will be a different Penn State team. We're not going to know when they play Nevada, though. So it's gonna be a few weeks before we know whether or not that's what this is or not. I have to agree with Isaiah though. Like that Oregon game, we'll see what Oregon is. Maybe Oregon is just not that good this year. Maybe we'll have a sense of Oregon before that game. But like, I don't think they're going to win Oregon. And again, at Ohio State, there's no way they're winning that game. Even if Ohio State has 2 or 3 losses before that game, if Ohio State is a 3-point underdog in the game, I'm putting my entire balance on Ohio State in that game. I don't care. That's the level of this. Where it's just I have no faith in this team to do that. And that's the thing. I don't believe in James Franklin. Now, maybe we're at a point now where just the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator just do everything, and James Franklin just sits there on the sidelines and does nothing. Maybe that's what it takes to do this. I don't know.
Do we even believe that he's capable? Like, I think he did at some points, but like, how many times have we seen James Franklin actually make the right hire and then do the coaching himself and screw it up? That is a thing he does.
He did it on offense. Finally, he did. It's the Coach O model is what he needs to do. Is just don't even wear a headset, dude. Just talk to your players. I think that's what he has to do. It's funny to say that like a game. I would never say a game against a team that's going to be as highly ranked and as good as Oregon is pivotal because you can come back to it. But with this program, if they lose that game, I could see them losing a dumb one at UCLA or Iowa. I totally could. I could see them just going into a mental tailspin. It's like, crap, here we are. It happened again. And then they do it before. They lose one. The loss, they have the worst loss hangovers, it seems like, of any other team when they're expected to be really good. Man,
yeah, and also just to be fair, like everybody's crapping on Indiana for the non-conference schedule, but like you're not learning anything about Penn State here. So like, what happens if you go 3-0 and you're feeling great because you beat Villanova in a non-basketball game? And then what happens if you just lay an absolute? What if it's not even close? What if you just completely lay an egg in classic James Franklin style against Oregon? Like, no, that's got to be. That probably feels awful with the amount of hype that you got into this season and the amount of people that's saying it is this year, it's gonna happen. I agree with you. I feel like there's more ways for this to go wrong, specifically because of how many ways people think it's going to go.
Yeah, that game has the classic like home field disadvantage where if you're down in the third quarter, the crowd's going to be in such pucker mode. It's going to be uncomfortable to watch.
Also, because that's probably going to be the best game of the week, almost by far, and like Ohio State fans have complained about this for the past like 3 years now, to the point where somebody introduced a bill in the Ohio legislature to make it illegal. That's going to be the Big Ten noon game, which means you can't do the night whiteout thing.
No. Yeah. I don't know. As a Big Ten guy, I can't argue with the money. Speaking of as a Big Ten guy, here's your team.
One more point actually about Penn State before we it's super quick. Basically, because the coaches poll is Texas 1, Ohio State 2, Penn State 3, and then Oregon 7. And then Georgia, Notre Dame, and for some reason Clemson is 6. I'm not sure exactly why. That must be some sort of error. But there's a non-zero chance that Penn State, Oregon is 2 versus 3 when they play in week 4. And that's like, we know that I'm not worried about Dan Lanning with the pressure on that. I'm 1,000% worried about James Franklin and the pressure when he's the number 2 team playing the number 3 ranked team. And like that, I would be worried about that. So that's
the last time we had that, it was number 2 Penn State at number 3 Iowa, which is the most fraudulent top 5 Iowa team in the history of top 5 teams. And James Franklin still crapped himself. And they blamed the quarterback getting hurt, which didn't help. But they were still, like, if I remember correctly, like they were up in that game. And then as soon as the quarterback got hurt, it was like, it wasn't even okay. We're still up, like we should still win this game. They just stopped trying, and Iowa just got them back into the game, and then Iowa them to death. And then Iowa ended up getting proven to be like complete and total frauds. And then it was like, what did you do, man? Like even with the backup, you should have won that game. So yeah, that doesn't feel great. Speaking of things that don't feel great.
Yeah, yes, thank you. All right, I like the Barry Odom hire. Josh Henson as offensive coordinator. He was a really good offensive line coach. Don't use the past tense. He probably still is. Don't know about him as an offensive coordinator, though. That's a jump, and it doesn't take an expert. If you watch a USC game, Lincoln Riley is not just calling the plays, it's his offense. Henson had the offensive coordinator title, but yeah, no. Don't know who Ryan Brown with an E is. Their Ryan just got crushed in the portal here. My goodness. The worst defense in the conference is starting over. Again, it's good that they have Barry Odom, but man, this is a year zero thing all around. 3.5, the under is just, I think this is one of the biggest juices that I've seen in all the previews, minus 240. I think that's fair. I don't know. My question for you, Isaiah, just to start is, did you notice that they have 5 transfers from Georgia?
Yeah, and my response to that would be, did you know they had 3 from Georgia last year?
Oh, okay. So they have, are they like the Eagles
and
now?
Might I point out that one of those transfers from Georgia already has a driving-related offense in West Virginia.
Of course.
We are building the pipeline.
Yes.
Establishing the culture.
Correct.
So fill us in on the Boilermakers.
Yeah, so the first thing is, I really like the Barry Odom hire specifically because of what he did at UNLV. Like, the one thing is, Purdue is not Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, where you're going to have every tool at your disposal to do whatever you want, right? This is a place where you have to work. But I feel very confident in still saying that you are in the Big Ten. You have the Big Ten media deal. Purdue is a place where you should get more resources than you did at UNLV. UNLV was historically bad before he came in, and then he wins 9 games in the first year and 11 in the second. That hasn't happened at UNLV since like the 80s. So at the very least, he is experienced with coming into complete and total train wrecks. Not to make a pun, like that wasn't supposed to be a pun, but
boy.
It's a complete and total train wreck. The schedule is hard because I guess we refuse to do the Kurt Signetti thing, and we insist on playing Notre Dame every year. We also have Ole Miss coming up. We have TCU coming up. Yeah, they just refuse to accept that nobody else does this. And then also you add in Ohio State, Michigan, at Washington, Indiana. Like,
man, last month is not fun, man.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they're within range of anybody in that last month. I will say Ryan Brown, he does actually have 2 career starts. Ryan Brown was the quarterback that put up 49 points at Illinois.
Oh, okay.
The funny thing about that game was I was on a flight from Amsterdam to London for the first half of it. I assumed it was going to be out of hand, so I wasn't paying attention. The second I landed, I had all these texts, and they were like, dude, like we were down, but now we've come back, and now like this is a game again. And it was going back and forth in the second half. The interesting thing about that game is actually Purdue should have won it. They had a lead in overtime. The Illinois quarterback very clearly fumbled the ball, but Big Ten officials don't know the rules to the game, so they blew the call. It turned out being good for Purdue that they blew the call, because had they won that game at Illinois, I'm not sure Ryan Walters gets canned.
Because he has 2 wins?
Yeah, but you beat a top 15 Illinois team in Champaign.
Okay. All right.
Also, plus, I don't know, they also went to overtime with Northwestern. Maybe that game turns out differently because you have a little bit more morale. Like, it was very clear to me the last month of the season that the team quit. Like, Indiana is very good. Indiana was very good. 66-0 was not just because Indiana was good. It was because the team wanted the coach gone. And it was very obvious. So basically the way I look at this Purdue team is it cannot get worse. It can't. You have an FCS team on the schedule. You have Ball State. They're 18-point favorites against Ball State in week 1. They're going to match their win total in week 1, from last year. So you're going to start 2-0. The challenge on the win total is then basically you have to find 2 more wins. There's a lot of places to find losses.
Yes, there are.
That is what it is with the schedule. Like, basically the way I look at it is you have 3 places where I can find wins here. I see assuming that like Illinois goes back to like maybe that was the Ryan Walters Super Bowl and that goes back to normal. You have at Minnesota, you have at Northwestern, which will be a Purdue friendly crowd, and you have Rutgers at home. Otherwise, this team is basically a lottery ticket. I will tell you from what I've heard from the program and what I think is that Ryan Brown will not be starting that deep in the season because I like Malachi Singleton. He was a backup for Arkansas, but he had to actually start some games. He beat Tennessee. He started and beat Tennessee. which is the sign of a true Boilermaker, if you know anything
Oh man,
what's going
there you
on
go.
between Tennessee and Purdue lately. I think the interesting thing about it is like they lost everybody other than Devin McAfee, who's actually a really good running back. I actually look at losing everything as a positive because there was so much
Yeah.
bad. Like they actually pulled in a really good set of offensive line players, which maybe that Josh Henson probably had something to do with that. I've been told that the offensive line looks really good, and you have that solid running back to look forward to. I don't think there's anything that special anywhere else on the offense, right? Like at the very least, it could be watchable, which I think all of us would take. Defense, it should get better just because it cannot get worse. A lot of the problems were misuse, which is crazy because Ryan Walters was supposed to be a defensive guy. Like Dylan Thieneman was an all Big Ten guy the year before, and then was just half the time he was unplayable. And now he's at Oregon, right? So the guy clearly knew. I just chalk up so many of those games to the coaching staff being completely in over their head. I feel bad for Ryan Walters, and unfortunately, I was part of this. Was like by the end of the thing, it just got really nasty between the fans and him because it was like we know how the school worked. They weren't going to can him unless the pressure was on, and it basically got to the point where I think Cignetti did Purdue fans a favor because if there were any donors that were still on the let's give him another try. 66 nothing ended that. It was over. So but I look at some of the games last year, like the Illinois game, like they really should have won that game. I think if Barry Odom is coaching that game, they win that game. Northwestern, they lost in overtime because of horrible play calling in overtime. I think Barry Odom wins that game. They had chances to win, or at least chances to be in the game. They were in the game at various points of the game and even late against Nebraska and Michigan State and Oregon State. So it's like, even as bad as that team was, you could have at least done something if the coaching staff wasn't so woefully like out of their mind, just out of their element. Gosh, the Graham Harrell thing was just like, what are we doing? I don't know, man. I'm not gonna advocate betting on them. I wouldn't bet. I'm certainly not gonna tell you to bet under minus 240. That's crazy to me. Like, what is the point of laying that kind of juice?
Yeah.
As a fan, I have a very small play on the over because I got crazy plus money on it. I think there is a world where they beat Northwestern and Rutgers and maybe even Minnesota, or maybe Illinois is the Super Bowl and they do something stupid there. I don't think it will happen, but you never know. I think there are more cases to take the value on the over if you feel you have to bet it, but I think you're also a sicko if you feel you have to bet it.
Yes.
I don't know. It's a lottery ticket, right? Like you're getting the plus money if you feel the need to do it. The other thing too is that juice, like basically literally every preview for the Big Ten I've read is, oh yeah, Purdue's going 2-10, 0-9, and that's it. There's no talk of it whatsoever. You can hit the transfer portal lottery. It does happen. That is what happens when you build teams out of the portal. You never know, right? So I think that's my view. We will be happy if it's watchable. And I think next year you look more towards, okay, this is where the coach is becoming noticeable, right?
Yeah, and I guess, Robert, I think all three of us like that week one matchup against Ball State against the spread. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Ball State is in deep trouble there. No, I will say that I like the over there, whatever the number is. It's probably be like what, plus 180.
Yeah, it's plus 180.
Yeah,
I've seen it up plus 190 at places.
That's pretty. Like you're starting off the season with 2 wins, and okay, you have to get your wins in before the calendar turns to November. So you have to basically win 2 more games between the tail end of September and all of October. But like, you have at Minnesota, you have at Northwestern, you have Rutgers. You could even have another upset against Ohio State if Ohio State is having a rough year, right? There is a path. It's not crazy. There are worse bets you could make. And if you do that, it's just a pure bet on just a coach. A coach that just has nothing and it's nothing to lose and it's just like, yeah, whatever, we're just going to try to win as many games as we can. And that's the thing. Sometimes a team that has zero expectations on it can actually do the craziest thing. So I think this team's going to make a bowl, no. Not in the last 4 games, but I don't know, maybe they catch Washington. Maybe they could get lucky here. Like I could see them getting to a fourth win. I think it's definitely possible. I like the Barry Odom hire. I think he's probably one of the better coaches in that they could have gone for. It was a great hire, and I think it will pan out. I don't think it's going to be this year, but this could be a scrappy team that finds their way to a fourth win, maybe even a fifth win, and outside chance of a bowl, but probably not. But like, I could see 4 wins. I could see a 4-win season and people in Purdue being happy. That's what I can see.
I will say, we've been here before because they canned Hazel my junior year. And they went into the next year with the first year of Jeff Brom, and it was the same thing. It was going to be an awful team. They're going to be lucky if they beat anybody other than Indiana, because Indiana was terrible at the time. And they made a bowl. They went 7-6 that year, and they upset a lot of. They surprised a lot of people. Right now, that team actually had proven talent on it. It was just the fact that Hazel couldn't coach, so they didn't use it much. We don't necessarily know that this team has that, other than the UNLV transfers and Devin Mockabee. But like, weirder things have happened, and I think there is a much better case to be made on the value of the plus money on the over than there is to say, yeah, every single casual, every single media analyst, everyone who's just leaving it at 0-9. It's actually really hard to go 0-9 in the Big Ten. Like, even last year when they did it, you had the Illinois game and the Northwestern game, right? Like, they tried not to go 0-9 in the Big Ten, right? Maybe this is one of those cases too where everybody is just chalking up to this is what they were last year, so this is what they're going to be this year. I don't know. We'll take it if it's watchable.
Okay. You know who I do not think is watchable? Is Rutgers. I've just got so little interest in this team. Now, somehow, they've made bowl games in 3 of the 5 seasons under Shiano. One that they did not was the COVID season, which is even more impressive. They made none in the 5 seasons prior to that. They were another good luck team last year. This is the kind that will regress. Oh, shit. Ethan Kaliamakis. Sorry, give me 1 second.
The Greek Rifle.
Yeah, the Greek Rifle. There we go. Ethan returns, the Greek Rifle. This Rob Smith DC, he was... You remember when PJ was first at Minnesota and the defense was really bad? Yeah, that was his DC. Fired after 21 games. Good job. He was the defensive coordinator here in 2012. This is where it gets really weird. Then in 20 and 21, he was the DC here. Then Mike Elko hired him in 22. Elko did not retain him. Then this guy is an analyst at Penn State. This does not inspire confidence. Season total is 5.5. It's for some reason the over's getting money. I don't know. They're overvalued. I don't feel strongly enough about this to argue with the market and play it. I'm just not interested enough in Rutgers, but I don't see what they build upon here. Do you, Robert, see anything that they can build upon?
It's the best they can do. Ethan Kalimanis.
Wow.
Yeah, it's probably better. It's probably easier to say than what I just tried to do there. Is that the best they could do? Like, really? You can, if you get another transfer quarterback, you can at least save on the jersey lettering. Like, you could save cost that way. I don't, seriously, you are a Big Ten team. You get money, lots of money. Find a better quarterback. This isn't that hard. I don't know. It's just, this is a perennial, middle-of-the-pack team. It's just like an lower-tier Big Ten team, but it's better than middle-tier teams from other conferences. There's not much to say about this, but look, they start off 3-0. They get 2 MAC teams and an FCS team. So you start off 3-0, then you're just every one of these games, it's a grind fest. Could you beat Iowa? Sure, okay. Could you beat Minnesota? Sure, okay. Washington, they actually did beat them last year. Purdue, they could beat Purdue. Maryland, they could definitely beat Maryland. It's basically we start off 3-0 and then there's just a bunch of coin flips. And it's just you have to bet that they win exactly 3 of 5 coin flips. And could they? Yeah. Could they lose all those? Sure, but they're probably not going to. It's just, I don't want to touch this. I like betting on Rutgers in certain spots when I think they're undervalued, but I don't. It's not fun football. It is not a fun football team. It's painful to watch this team sometimes.
Yeah. The certain spots are I'm bored and I'm drunk, I think, are the only times when I would bet on them.
If they're playing on a Friday night, then yeah, okay.
Need to bet them, yeah.
Yeah, also known as Friday night in my house. Yeah, Isaiah, anything more on Rutgers?
Yeah, the one thing I do want to say is I think it is tougher to. I don't really. I know they're in the Big Ten and they've been in the Big Ten for a while now. I think it is tougher to win here than people give credit for. And the reason I say that is Greg Schiano's in his second stint here. He's the only one that's been able to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And even then, we're talking about 6-6, 7-6, 6-7 being the like, oh dang, this guy's got a good thing going. I look at their schedule last year, and it was like, okay, they got their two pushovers out of the way, and then they played at Virginia Tech, which means nothing anymore. And then yeah, they had that random win against Washington, which if I remember correctly was one of those many games where Washington just did the Washington thing.
Joe, don't get me started on that.
I'm remembering this really weird and like kind of controversial special teams play where I had thought at the time that the officials just like completely made something up, but I can't remember if that. I don't want to say that happened for sure because I don't entirely remember. They lost at Nebraska 7-14. They lost at Wisconsin 7-42. Are we sensing a trend here? And then like they got the PJ Fleck no-show game where they won 29. They won at home, and then they beat Maryland. That doesn't really mean much to me. And then they beat Michigan State. They did blow out Michigan State to get to the bowl game, which is interesting because it was in East Lansing. But I just don't look at anything here and be like, I have reason for optimism on this team because, again, like Robert said, there's so many coin flip games. And, like, when I look at them last year, it's weird. They, like, won the games that we didn't really think they were going to win, like Washington and Minnesota and Michigan State. And then they lost the games that we thought they had chances in, UCLA and Wisconsin. I'm not a believer in the Greek Rifle. I wasn't a believer in him at Minnesota. I'm certainly not a believer in him now. They got a good running back. At least I think Mononga is back. I feel that shows you like what I think I've done about this team is I'm not 100% sure. He is a good back if he is back. I hate that defensive coordinator hire because again, like when you're bad at Minnesota, and then you're fired, and like the change was immediate. It immediately got significantly better. And this is a team that has to be good on defense because they're not going to be good on offense. Mm-hmm. This is like Iowa got rid of Phil Parker and hired a bad defensive coordinator. I didn't bet the under 5.5, but I don't think they're a bowl team. And I guess you get Maryland at home, so that's your one Big Ten win, and then you need another one. You don't even get Purdue at home. You have to go to Purdue. And I'm just telling you right now, we're all going to that game. We actually, like me and a couple friends are treating that as the Super Bowl because we actually, United started offering flights from Chicago to Purdue's airport.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's a 25-minute flight, and we're like, I just want to do that to do that. So so we're flying in for that game. But like I can tell you, every Purdue fan's going to be at that game. So that you don't even get like a gimme there. I don't know. I certainly don't see where are we getting minus 140 on the over? Like,
yeah. No.
What is happening here?
Yeah, I don't know. The only reason I wouldn't bet it, it's not bettably. I don't want to be forced to watch the Rutgers games.
Yeah. Plus, this could spiral. Look at how that ends at Washington, Oregon, at Illinois, at Ohio State, Penn State, and if you lose the Purdue game, man, they're going to be checked out.
Yep. Yeah. All right. I zigged and zagged on this one. UCLA. Second season under Deshaun Foster. They were sneakily competent and functional last year. Now, the thing was, Ethan Garbers was just really underappreciated last year. 116 Apex or 122 Apex Plus is good, and he was sneakily not bad the year before. The problem is, UCLA just, I don't know. Like getting Tino Sanseri, of course, it's UCLA. They do things on the cheap when it comes to football. They get a guy, he was a co-OC last year. This is his first time calling plays. Not surprising. The whole Nico thing, it just blows the sneaky competence thing out of the water. because this guy is just way overblown. There's so many headlines following this guy. 116 Apex, Tennessee is good. It's not as good as as all the publicity that he's getting. This wide receiver, I'm concerned about the wide receivers. The top returning wide receiver is a 159 Ryan. Sorry, Isaiah, that's like what Purdue is looking at here, and they're in a rebuild. This Caden Robinson guy, apparently there's some questions about his eligibility. They were 17th in the conference in running offense. I'm not really sure what we have in the offensive line here. We have one full-time starter, 2 part-time starters from last year, a Kentucky part-time starter that's transferring in, and a backup from Florida State. It's again, UCLA doing things on the cheap here. The magic of that 23 defense was awesome. They were just an under machine. There's nothing left from that defense at all. The season win total is 5.5. Excuse me. They're not going to beat Utah. They've got 3 winnable games here. And after that, the water gets really deep except for Maryland. This is a tough conference schedule. You've got easy here. And after that, Penn State, Michigan State, Indiana, they're just not on the level of these other teams here. Maybe Michigan State, but I'm much more high on Michigan State.
They're at Northwestern, too, which, like, if there's one fan base that won't invade Northwestern...
Can they deal with the lake in late September, right? The lake effect? Yeah, they're overvalued. I'm not... Again, I don't feel strongly enough to bet it, but I don't see the money going on the over 5.5. That 6th win is going to be tough. I don't like... I'll throw it to you, Robert, on this. I don't like a first-time coordinator without Kurt Cignetti and Elijah Sarrett to make his job easy. I don't like Nico without the Heupel scheme, and he has no weapons here that he had anything close to at Tennessee. I think just this offense is starting from way, way behind. And let's not forget, he wasn't there for spring practice either.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, after Utah, yeah, that's going to be a problem. At UNLV, remember, that is Dan Mullen. That's Dan Mullen coming back now. Now they're better than them, but hey, you never know. New Mexico, they'll beat that. They'll beat them. Northwestern, sure, okay. Maryland, okay. So, like, I'm not sure if you see 5 wins. Outside of Northwestern, New Mexico, and UNLV, and in Maryland there, which is 4. Like, Penn State, going to be one of the better teams. Michigan State, a team that we think is going to be better than expected. Indiana, a team that we think should compete for the conference. Nebraska, another good team. Ohio State, a perennial contender. Washington, a team we're high on. And USC, like, that's ridiculously brutal, right? That is an insane schedule down the stretch.
Nuts.
Yeah. 145 is a bit high, but I don't know. I know 116 sounds good for an SEC quarterback, and it is good, but, like, with Heupel's scheme, like, it purposely inflates quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Like, the ones who've come out of his schemes, like Hendon Hooker, has never been that great in NFL, like in NFL spring training and stuff. So I almost wonder.
I'm sorry, how is Joe Milton's NFL career? I've missed that.
No, that's true as well, right?
Okay.
He hasn't. He played. And all these guys, they all have to. Oh yeah, we talk about them in the preseason and stuff. And like, we can't wait to see them play. It's you just threw the ball like 300 yards, but like Joe Milton's already on his second team already, right? So these guys have never. He doesn't produce NFL quarterbacks. They always end up in preseason games, and maybe they have 1 or 2 fun moments in the preseason, but outside of that, they're never like dependable. And this is the thing, and the fact that Tennessee has money. Let's put it clearly here. Mm-hmm. Tennessee has money. If Heupel said, "This is our guy, we need him," they'd cop the money. But if he was like, "Give me millions more than I'm worth," and if Heupel was just like, "Fine, whatever, we don't need you, you can go," right? If he was at that point, that means that he may not be as good as expected here, right? Now, maybe UCLA obviously is a weird kind of spot for that to go. I would say if you think like quarterback from Tennessee leaving, there'd be other teams that you would think would probably gravitate to that faster than say UCLA. But like you almost wonder if it was like a lot of other teams that were maybe in a more desperate need just passed and said, fine, whatever you like. there's got to be other teams that had more money that could have offered him the money that would have been better fits, that would have been more competitive. But UCLA somehow just was like, nope, we're getting this guy. I don't know. I just like something about this doesn't. I don't love this. He looked really good in that one bowl game against Iowa 2 years ago, a year and a half now, in the 2023 season. Then didn't have a great 2024. They got blown out in the playoff there. I don't know. I almost wonder if his apex is a little bit inflated. And honestly, we thought the Big Ten was a better league than the SEC last year. And for a lot of the season, they're playing against the best Big Ten teams. So, like, that 116 apex is actually a tad inflated. He might actually be closer to an 80 or a 90 apex. And if that's the case, then he's just like a below average Big Ten quarterback. I don't know. I don't love this. I think they probably are overvalued. But it's going to be crazy if this team is like, they're spending all this money on this team and they go like 4-8 or something. I think that could end the coach here.
No, they're too cheap to fire him. They just don't spend that kind of money in football. But man, just the more I talk about this, I have so many concerns about this offense. You know, Isaiah, I know UCLA is not in your backyard like it is mine, but man, I don't know what you build upon here, right?
I actually do have some thoughts here, and I want to give a little credit to them for last year because I think all three of us, but I at least was pretty harsh on Foster. I was like, oh, I think this is a train wreck hire. I think this is going to be a train wreck season. And like they were sneakily confident. So I don't want to immediately go into trashing them without being fair and owning up to say, hey, I got that wrong last year. With that said, there are so many red flags here because I don't think he has proven that he is the coach for the future. You overperformed, and that's great. But I also look at their results last year, right? They beat Hawaii by 3 it was in Honolulu. So I'm sure there were people like me who were sick enough to watch that game. But then 5 losses in a row, waxed by Indiana, waxed by LSU, waxed by Oregon, waxed by Penn State.
Those are all good teams.
All good teams. But what are your wins here? You won at Rutgers by 3. You won at Nebraska by 7. That's not bad, but if I remember correctly, that was one of those games where Nebraska just crapped themselves. You beat Iowa at home by 3. That's on brand since UCLA is
yes. That's
the Iowa of the West. I don't know. Then you're not particularly competitive against Washington. You lose a low-scoring game against USC, and then you need the Fresno State. You beat Fresno State by 7. Like, I don't really see anything on here where it's like, again, you beat the expectations in terms of everybody. Like, we thought you were going to be unwatchable, but you still didn't really do anything incredible here. And on the Nico thing, it's like the first thing is, look, I can crap on Tennessee all I want because of the rivalry we've developed with them in all these sports, but like Josh Heupel is the QB whisperer. Like he's like Lincoln Riley. Like he just makes QBs good. And I'm with Robert in that, from what I can tell, Heupel didn't make that much of a deal about trying to keep him. It doesn't seem like it, at least. We're not privy to the backroom conversations or whatever, but it feels like that happened pretty quickly, which, like, in my gut, with the way he left, that makes me think that Nico was like, give me this or I'm out, and Heupel said bye.
Yep.
And especially because if he was all that, quite frankly, he wouldn't be playing for UCLA. So I have questions about that. He had way more talent around him at Tennessee. So how is that going to translate? This is not a program that's known for offense, that's for sure. And then you have this brutal schedule. There's just so many red flags. And then also you need Nico to be really good. But is there a locker room concern here? That he thought he was good enough to that he thought he was good enough to walk away from Tennessee and to walk away from Josh Heupel, and now he's going to come in here and be like, I'm the Tennessee quarterback. I don't generally make bets on things like that, but it is something to keep in mind. The thing about this win total is you're betting whether they're bowl team or not. And even last year they overperformed and they weren't a bowl team.
Yeah.
So I will say I swallowed the juice on this and I actually played the under. This is not a bowl team because you're not beating Utah and you're not beating Penn State. You're not beating Indiana. I don't see beating Nebraska this year. You're not beating Ohio State. You're not beating Washington. I don't think you're beating USC. And like, even the only game I can give you here is Maryland. Like, you could very well lose to Northwestern. So yeah, I see way more cases to where this bet probably easily hits. Like, I don't see
Yeah.
where you get 3 on that Big Ten schedule.
Yeah.
No,
I
wait,
just
no, you need 4. You need 4 because you're not beating
Yeah,
Utah.
you're not be Utah. Yeah. I want to point out too, last year as a reminder, what Tennessee did well last year was defense and running the ball. The weakest point of this team was the quarterback under Josh Heupel. I think that says a lot. Now he was young in his first year starting, so he can improve, but I don't see him taking a step forward going from that situation to this one. I don't know. Fun watch for me since I'm from this school. USC Trojans, home of the quarterback with the 79 apex. Fight on, everyone. Now, I did have them third in the Big Ten in offensive rating. Here's what's interesting about Maeva. 79 apex, he was 3-1 as a starter. For the season, they faced in all of college football, they had the 9th toughest strength of opponent when it came to pass defense or opposing pass defenses. And specifically to his performance here, he had a 92 apex versus Nebraska, who had a 97 defensive apex. That was his first start. It was basically even against UCLA, 86 versus an 87. Then this is what's really interesting. He had an 81 against Notre Dame, who was a 33 defensive apex for the year. He's basically on par, and then he actually has a really good game, and his numbers are skewed. We're going to see this in the SEC. I'll just say this happens to a more extreme version in the SEC preview, but we're grading on a pretty crazy curve here with this defense right here, especially Notre Dame, and him actually doing a good job. The offensive rating with Miller Moss starting was 6.4. If I just take USC once Maeva's a starter, that jumps up to 13.9. That's 5th overall in college football. It doesn't seem like it, but they're playing some really solid defenses here. I think, look, he's not a special quarterback. He's good enough. He throws well. He made some really bad decisions, but he's young. Hopefully that doesn't recur. The reason he's so much different, I think Miller Moss is actually a better thrower of the ball and makes much better decisions and is more accurate. The thing is, I've really learned is with Lincoln Riley, if you don't have a quarterback that you can make the defense have to respect the quarterback running, everything shrinks. And the Lincoln Riley offense is getting defensive people out of position and not understanding what to do. And a big part of it is a quarterback that can run, and that wasn't a threat with Miller Moss. Maeva runs enough, just enough to make that a possibility. As you can see, just the difference here is stark in terms of the offensive rating. They lose a lot from the wide receiver room. Interesting, Deuce Robinson showed up. He was awesome in the half of the games where he really showed up. Zachariah Branch, I'll just say he had an interesting season. Good luck to Georgia with him. Kyron Hudson, I love. Hope he does well at Penn State. So they return their leading receiver, Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, who basically, I'll put it this way, Robert. We talked about San Jose State. We said we almost liked that they had 2 guys that took all the oxygen out of the wide receiver room. I think you're looking at that here. Now, I'm worried about the 3rd wide receiver. We'll see if anybody steps up. It's Lincoln Riley, so they should. Danton Lynn improved the offense by almost 6 points in his first year. Still, you have a lot of room to do to be even decent in the Big Ten. Again, the D-line added a lot of bodies. I think they're from better programs now. You got a guy from Georgia, Keyshawn Silver from Kentucky. They got a 4-star high school recruit, Jakeem Stewart. And they also, Anthony Lucas was having a really good season, and then he was out the second half of the year. The thing that's really interesting to me is David Bailey went in the transfer portal from Stanford after Troy Taylor was fired. He went to Mater Dei High School. It was just assumed he would go to USC. He liked USC too. And USC actually said, nah, we're good. This guy had 18 sacks at Stanford. So the fact that they didn't even make a run at him makes me think that they're much more confident in the D-line this year versus last year. Now, I've said that every year, so we'll see if that actually turns out to be something. 7.5. The over 160 I'm not delighted about, but I just think the number would be 8. 7.5 just seems, so I think they're slightly undervalued. I think they start 4-0. Now you're getting into these games where they're basically on the same level as Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska. You throw in Iowa. There's 4 coin flips that, coin flips. Those are like opponents of the same caliber, so you hope that they split those. I think they land on about 8. It seems right. I think they're more likely at 8 than 7, but I'm not going to lay 160. So, I don't know. I know this team better than you guys. I guess my question for you is, Robert, since obviously, Isaiah, you're a good numbers guy too. Am I reading too much into basically the strength of opponent here and getting all jazzed up about what Maeva might? Robert, am I trying too hard with the strength of opponent here and trying to justify what Jaden Maeva might be this year?
No, as we actually, okay, 1 second. That was weirdly slow for a second. Just redo that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Robert, am I trying too hard in using the strength of opponent here to justify what Jaden Maeva might be this season?
No. As we've been going through these previews tonight, I keep noting like USC, because this team was actually like pretty good last year, right? They opened up the season against LSU, beat LSU. We were high on them then. Then they lose to Michigan, a team that we didn't think was good, but they were better than expected. Then they lose at Minnesota. They lose to Penn State in overtime, but they had the lead in that game. They lost to Maryland, which is inexcusable. They lost to a Washington team that was looking better towards the end of last season, and then they obviously lose to Notre Dame. But they had a lead in that game, right? So this is the thing. This team was actually not that bad. They had a really tough schedule, probably tougher than people thought, and they just were not that good in the beginning part of the season. And I think, I'm not sure if this team is better or worse than last year's, but it's probably more experience than last year's. Lincoln Riley he's a good coach. He's had some good teams. They really let Caleb Williams down 2 years ago there, but like Lincoln Riley is known for pretty good teams. They will bounce back. Like, this team could be a playoff team. It's an outside shot there, but looking at the schedule, okay, you've got Michigan, and you've got Notre Dame, and you've got Nebraska, and you've got Oregon. So that's not fun. But outside of that, it's a very doable schedule. Like, you've got to beat San Illinois. You've got basically those 4 games. And if you can win 2 to 3, if you can win 2 of those 3, you're in good shape. If you win 3 of those 4, you're probably in the conference championship game. So that's the thing. I think the 7.5 is probably about. I think could they beat Notre Dame? They could possibly beat Notre Dame. They should be able to beat at Illinois, at Nebraska. This is where some of these are elimination games for some of these potential playoff teams, if that's how good USC is. I'm high on them. They will have their time. Maybe Miller Moss. We were high on Miller Moss after he shredded Louisville in that bowl last year. Maybe he wasn't as good as we thought he was. Maybe they needed Jaden Maeva, and maybe now that Lincoln Riley's got his running quarterback, maybe now he can do some real damage here. So I like USC, but I'd much rather do like USC to make the playoff rather than USC just get over 7.5, because that's a pretty heavy price to pay for over 160.
Yeah, it is. Boy, Isaiah, somehow Robert said the P word and I didn't in terms of playoff. I don't see it happening. I do see them in that. I look at the schedule this way. Oregon and Notre Dame, they're a cut below, and I think they're in the same group as Illinois, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa. That's 4. Basically, if you split those 4 and you win the 6 that you're supposed to, then you're over the 8. That's probably an oversimplification. I guess my question to start USC with you is, do you see them USC at home versus Michigan is roughly in the same kind of category?
The first thing I would say is at home, the biggest advantage for them at home is that they don't have to travel.
Yes.
Because at least from what I have heard from some other people who I know that are from the USC thing, it's not exactly the worst place for opponents to play right now. Like, it's not playing at the lacrosse field in Evanston.
Yeah.
But it's not Ohio Stadium. So I think that's worth noting. It is interesting that obviously Michigan's going to have to travel, right? These teams are going to have to come to SC. I think the thing that worries me, right, is we were so high on them last year. And we were high on them because of the numbers. And then I was on their win total over. I was on them to make the playoffs, and it just didn't work out. And it's not like it was a train wreck, right? But it was like they had the lead in that Michigan game, or no, they were down, and then they came back, and they got the lead, and it felt like, oh, okay, they've taken over, they're going to win. And then they just gave it up again. And then they lost at Minnesota. The Penn State game was a heartbreaker. I can't explain the Maryland one. I don't know what happened there. Again, I'm looking at the numbers here, and I can make a perfectly good case for them. But, I can also say, okay, are they going to bite us again? Are all numbers going to just blow up in our face, right? Like we were so high on Miller Moss, and is Miller Moss the first quarterback where we can look up and say, boy, that was a miss by Lincoln Riley?
Well,
Just
two things on that. He didn't recruit Miller Moss, which is something to be said for, and he is by far the least mobile quarterback he's ever had.
Fair. And then, I look at the defensive rating. Yeah, that's a good, we said, this is a good defensive coordinator hire, and he did do good work here. Now, I think some of that is it could not possibly work. Right? So we have that. I'm in wait-and-see mode on them. I'm not going to bet against them. I'm also not going to swallow minus 160 bet on them. I'm not willing to go with the P word like Robert did. I don't think they're there yet. And I think there's too many places where I don't know if I'm willing to say that they are on the same level as Michigan. I'm not sure I'm willing to say they're on the same level as at Illinois. I think I can make a case for Nebraska, even though it's at Nebraska, because I personally think Illinois and Michigan are a step above Nebraska. I'm certainly not willing to say that they're on the same level as Notre Dame and Oregon. So they could improve, or these numbers could come out and they could go to Illinois and they could win that game, and then we go, okay, this is the improvement that we've been waiting for from Lincoln Riley. But they could also go and lose that game, and then it's okay. We beat Purdue and Michigan State, but now we've lost to Illinois, and now we have Michigan at home, and now it feels like a must-win, right?
Yep.
So I feel like there's just a million different ways this team could go, and I don't want to fade them, but I'm not gonna back them.
Yep, fair. I mean, they just needed to do it, and the thing that's crazy is they did it in the opener, they did it in the last game,
right?
And the true irony of that is they did it to go 2-0 against the SEC when everybody said Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma because he didn't want to play against the SEC. To be, of course, Paul Feinbaum can suck on that. Okay.
You'll make a lot of friends in Big Ten country with that opinion. Whether it's the Indiana fans who have been declared invalid by him, or the Purdue fans who told us that we actually lost the Tennessee bowl game even though we had more points than Tennessee. He declared it a loss for Purdue anyway.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's the other P word, Paul Feinbaum. I'm not going to mention that anymore either. Okay. I think there's a sneaky consensus I've been building on this. I really like this team, Washington. Second season under Jed Fish. They had significant bad luck last season. I forgot about this. They should have won that Washington State game, and John Mateer just pulled one out of his posterior there. The Rutgers game you were talking about, there were 3 special teams flubs there. One of them had a guy running on the field to be a 12th man on the field.
That was the referee thing I was talking about where I think they blew that.
Yeah. I had him as 23rd. I had him as good anyways. Robert had him more, I think, with the more conventional thinking. Here's what I love. Damond Williams, 152 Apex last season. He started 2 games, but I got so excited to put together a little table here. Look at these opposing defenses he did this against. Whatever I argued about Maava, this is like that exponentially so. I mean, he 37 Apex against Iowa, first start, sure, whatever. Or that wasn't the start, first game. 78 Apex against a really good Penn State defense. And then you're looking at these last 3 games, a 140, 183, and 201. Now, stupid things happen in a bowl game, as we know. We can ask Miller Moss about that. But this is nuts. This kid is just, everybody's missing. It seems like even if you have to go to really deep into Husky football Twitter to find the people that are unearthing this. I think, let me grab where are you? My laser pointer here. There we go. I think Ryan Walters is a good fit here. Obviously not cut out to be a good coach. Probably they say the quadruple A baseball player. Really good coordinator, not quite a major leaguer head coach. Perfect for here. Good match for Jed Fish. Young guys, recruit very well. But near term, 7.5 under 140. I think the market's just totally wrong here. I think the market's just missing. I think specifically, one guy, he made a really dumb but brilliant point. He said if you're gonna feel strong about something, you need to know what the market is missing that you're including. It's this right here. People don't get this. This is it. This Damon Williams is the real freaking deal here. And he's got Jed Fish. Let's not forget what Fafita was. Noah Fafita, who's 5'8". He was a fierce quarterback. This guy's much more talented than Fafita. I love this. I'm not going to play the schedule game on this and go through the wins and losses. I think they easily get 8 wins here. I love the Huskies this year. Robert?
Yeah, I completely agree. A couple of things. one, I've been a pretty big fan of Jed Fish. I loved his hire by Washington. I thought that was a really smart thing to do. He was doing really well at Arizona, but then never saw it through because this Washington gig became available and they snapped him up. And that was, he knew he was walking into a tough place. I think a lot of people just are like, whatever. Washington had a couple of good years with Kalen DeBoer, and this is just what they're supposed to be. But it's, no, that's not. Washington was never, they had a couple of good years here and there, but with Kalen DeBoer, they were amazing. And they lost so much. I think basically their entire offense was drafted by the NFL. And the fact that you turn that around and you get to a bowl and you almost take down Louisville in a bowl, that's pretty crazy. And okay, you took down UCLA, you lost to Oregon. Some of these weren't that close, but you upset Michigan. You should have beaten Washington State. You should have beaten Rutgers. Like, it was not a bad team, and we talked about it. We, sneakily liked Washington a lot, and both our models. I think you had them top 25. I had them 40th. Not the same number, but at the same point in time, I think if you were to ask people where would you rank Washington, our models alone would just be by far the highest on Washington compared to basically any random person you ask on the street. Yep. And I think that matters, right? We don't get an AP poll vote. We should, but we don't. But this is the thing, is the fact that we don't, right? So people don't see that. People see the AP, they see the coaches. They don't realize, hey, this Washington team was actually sneakily not bad. Week 4, I think it's week 4. Yeah, week 4. Week 5, because they have a bye week by there. Week 5, DeMond Williams versus Matt Patricia's Ohio State defense at home. Ohio State going across the country. Right?
You framed that.
This is the thing, right? That if you pull off a win there, okay, you've got Michigan and Illinois and Oregon. But again, if you're able to, if you could take down Ohio State somehow, which I think Ohio State's probably somewhat vulnerable this year, then okay, you're not really, and maybe Michigan, but then at Illinois maybe it's not that big of a deal. There's a way this team can get to 10-2. You could see a 10-2, or maybe even an 11-1 season here, depending on how this all shakes out, depending on how good Michigan is. And Michigan's coming to them. Michigan's going across the country to see them. No, I don't know if this is the year Jed Fish gets them to the playoffs. There's a path here for it. This is the thing. It's that logjam. I think there's 6 really good teams at the top of the Big Ten, and 4 of them are getting into the playoff. I'm just not sure which 4 it's going to be. And these games, I think, are a lot closer than people realize. And some of these games, it's going to be like Indiana versus Illinois. You play week 4. Loser doesn't go to the playoff. That's literally what's going to take here. That's how the season's going to shake out.
Yeah, I thought I was selling pretty hard, and you're more optimistic than me. As you were talking, what I realized, and Isaiah, I'll throw it to you on this. This has got to be probably the most, I'll say, I don't want to say easy because it's a tough conference, but this has got to be the most generous road schedule in the conference. Oh. My gosh.
at Illinois is your concern here.
Yeah.
Also, I believe they host Purdue. I don't think they're at Purdue. But it wouldn't matter. It's not like that matters. But
okay. You know what? Yeah. I got those slipped. They're at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Tougher, but my gosh. Up next. Wisconsin.
This is set up great. I am fully on the Desmond Williams train too. I think he's absolutely the real deal. This was a sneakily good team last year too. Just people want to look at the record and say 6-7, oh, they were whatever. But again, they lost everything from that championship team, and a lot. When I look at this schedule, really the Rutgers game is the only, the Rutgers game is the only one I look at and say that really shouldn't have happened. But they had some crazy bad luck in that game. You probably shouldn't have given up 40 points to Iowa. That's not great, but still, yeah.
Yes.
That's tough. But Iowa's not a bad team. Kennett's a hard place to play. Washington State was not a bad team last year. They were 8-5. They wanted revenge. You left them in the dust in the remains of the Pac-2. That was personal to them. Indiana, not a bad loss. Penn State, not a bad loss. Oregon, not a bad loss. 1 point loss to Louisville in the bowl game. There's nothing to be ashamed of here.
Yeah.
And I know that Ryan Walters didn't work out as a head coach. The guy's young, right? That was asking a lot of him to come in and be a Big Ten head coach when he doesn't have that experience anywhere else. But defensively, as a defensive coordinator and other stops, there's nothing to suggest that he shouldn't be perfectly fine here. Like, I don't even think you have to be elite because this offense just should be stupid good. And like a lot of the teams that we've struggled to make cases for, it's been because I look at like these games against Minnesota and Iowa and I don't know, like teams like that, we say, oh, like they could win those, but they could lose those. Or Michigan State. This is different. Like the games that I look up on this schedule that I say, oh, they could win. Like I can make a case for them there. That's Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon. Like I can make a case against them for the teams they're not supposed to be. And we only have to have them win 8 games, right? Like for this over to cash. I think you look farther. I think obviously I am on the over. I love this win over. I don't know why it's juiced to the under. That makes no sense to me with what they have combined with the schedule here. Like even in a worst case scenario, they lose Ohio State, Michigan, Illinois, and Oregon. The win total has still hit here.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? This might be one of your FanDuel master classes, right? Yeah, I don't
to
get
that
it.
point, yeah, I guess those 4: Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and the 4th is
At
what did we say? Illinois.
Yeah. I don't see a case for them to lose all 4 of those games. I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, and specifically, if I'm looking at the quarterback position, I can't put Washington in the bottom 2 or 3 of that group.
No.
Right?
No,
Yeah.
and again, like not only this, they're all at home except for the Illinois game. Ohio State at home has to travel. Questionable defense with Matt Patricia and all the losses they've suffered on defense. Michigan, they're good on defense, but they have to travel. We're still trying to figure out what they're going to be on offense this year. Oregon, we have lots of cases for them. We have cases against them. I don't think, like, even last year, it's not exactly like Oregon was a team you absolutely couldn't score on. And again, you get them at home. So, yeah, I just think there's a lot of cases for Washington, and I don't see the cases against them this year. Like, this just should be a really solid team. And again, even if they're not, like, playoff good, that's fine. You don't need them to be. We need them to win 8 games here.
Yeah. I think there's just market inertia here. It's tougher in these big conferences, but this is just a miss by the market. So I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to put it at the exact same level, but, like, this has given me, like, last year Indiana level red flags where I'm like, just what are we doing here?
You almost think, what am I missing? Just have some faith there. Just it's not me, it's the market.
The fact that it's juiced to the under makes me think I'm not missing something.
Okay. Just to make old man story time real quick. After Syracuse had their one good season under Dino Babers, I don't know if you remember the next season, their total went from 4 to 8. Do you remember that?
Yeah, very vaguely.
And the under hit. The under, it wasn't even close. They won 3 games that year. So I'm going to say this. I feel confident against the market. I just need to retain that confidence at all times because I'm smarter than most of the market. Not on this podcast, so I'm right in the middle here. Okay, last team, Wisconsin. Don't want to say I told you, but I just will say I was pretty skeptical about the Phil Longo experiment, and that has earned Luke Fickell a 12-13 record. Phil Longo is now the head coach at Sam Houston. New OC Jeff Grimes, who tried to murder the career of Jalen Daniels, was not successful by season's end, but man, he tried really hard. Here's the bad news. Now he has Billy Edwards, who was pretty poor at Maryland, so he doesn't have really much to work with here. Defense should improve with these returning starts, improvement metric, and prime starts here. Bad news is they need to. This is like USC level bad, and guess what, Wisconsin, you don't have USC level offense or receivers. This stretch here, when you have Alabama, Michigan, Iowa not fun, Ohio State, and Oregon, and Washington, and Indiana, this is called the stretch that gets the coach fired. It's the 5.5. The under's getting crushed, I think, by not enough. Just the numbers wrong here. I don't even know what this. The thing that's frustrating is Fickell was so good at Cincinnati. You exactly knew what the program identity was. The only identity I see here is like bad quarterback play, and I don't see that being fixed this year. What do you hang your hat on here, Isaiah? This is in the Midwest, so I'm going to throw it to you on this.
Yeah.
What are they good at?
I'm from Wisconsin. Like this is this program that I'm very in tune with, and the thing is that they don't do anything well that Wisconsin teams do well. They didn't run the ball well, and they didn't really make an attempt to. Is the crazy like the biggest miss that Luke Fickell has made is it wasn't even the Phil Longo thing. That was a disaster. That's the move that may have ended his tenure before it began. But like the idea that you were going to come in here and turn this into a passing team, and it's dude, just take the layup, right? This isn't a passing program. And the other thing too is nobody was asking for that. Like Wisconsin fans are perfectly fine to play the mud ball and the run the ball as long as you're winning 9 to 10 games a season. There's nothing wrong with that. Like now, granted, I think there were some structural issues in this program, and it went back to Paul Chris, but they were hidden by the fact that Wisconsin played in the Big Ten West. I think some of those things came to roost now that you're on your own, right? And I'm going to go, no matter how this ends, I'm going to go out with saying that Luke Fickell was the right hire. It's just sometimes the right hire doesn't work out. Like we've seen that happen plenty of times. I do not think that he's going to get fired this year, plainly because they have the excuse of the schedule. You're not going to find a tougher schedule in college football. At Alabama, at Michigan, Ohio State, at Oregon, Washington, at Indiana, Illinois. Like, I don't give them, I'll be honest, I don't give them a shot in any of those games. I don't even think that, because even if you're not as high on Illinois as I am, Illinois owns them. Like, even Lovie Smith was beating Wisconsin.
Yep. And you know what? The thing, just one point on that real quick. When you have that kind of run, this is the classic, I'm going to my exhale game is Iowa. That's not what you want to do. That's not what you want to have happen.
Especially if we're talking about this program being crappy on offense and relying on defense. You know what program's perfectly okay with that? It's just, boy, honestly, I look at this and it's like outside of Maryland and then Miami and Middleton, like this is a 3-9 team in my mind.
Yeah.
And that's brutal. Like, again, I don't think Fickell's getting fired because they'll pass it off on the schedule, but there's nothing to build on here, right? Like, I don't know, maybe Jeff Grimes, like Kansas has been pretty resurgent, but I think that's more Leopold than it is his assistants. Billy Edwards was not good enough to stay at Maryland.
Yeah, having seen his only relatively good game when he beat USC, I can tell you that he doesn't scare me if I was playing Wisconsin this year.
No, I don't think that's a starter. No. And you don't have the cheat code running back that I know of. And even if you do, what's my guarantee that this offense is going to use it properly? This is a bad spot to be in. And because if you go 3-9, or even if you beat somebody else there and you go 4-8, that's 2 years in a row of not making a bowl after 20 years in a row of making a bowl.
Yeah. Yep.
You got issues. And then it's just, that basically puts all your pressure on 2026 where you don't have any, in my mind, you have nothing to build on. Like, this just feels like everybody knows where this is going. It's just you might have one more year for it to take you there. And that might be a bad thing, too. Is that a good thing? Like, I was talking on the Purdue part. It was like, okay, last year sucked, but at least it sucked enough to get the coach fired. And now we can start over. Is one more year of a thing that's not working actually going to make the program worse for the long term? I don't know. But I really think that this is a 3-9 team.
What you've just described is they're the Florida of the Big Ten, but without a quarterback. Literally. Imagine they didn't have a quarterback. And
they're the Florida of the Big Ten after losing their quarterback to Florida a couple of years ago. Yes.
Also, I forgot you're from Wisconsin, so you'll appreciate this. I know the one thing that they do well being in this state, and that is drink.
This is the program where the stands are empty because they claim it's because it is hard to get in, which it is, but also because everybody's too busy drinking on State Street, and then there's a game. And Badger fans, we're gonna get through it the way that all of our native Wisconsinites get through it.
Yes. With the comfort of the liquid inside the bottle.
If anyone wants to buy me an order of cheese curds and a beer at Old Fashioned, I will entertain your sadness.
Robert, maybe the path here is, since I poo-pooed the Phil Longo thing and how he just kills the defense, maybe just having an ordinary offensive coordinator lets the defense at least get back to Luke Fickell standards?
Yeah, no, it's not good, right? There's a lot of problems here. I don't like the offensive coordinator hire, and that's a problem because the one thing this team really badly needed was a better offensive coordinator. And their offense was not good last year. And that's not going to fix. The defense needs to improve as well. Billy Edwards is probably a step down at quarterback, right? It's really Wisconsin was the identity of Wisconsin was pretty clear. It was always, we're going to just run the ball. We're bigger than you. We're stronger than you. We're going to have an amazing running back. We're just going to run the ball. And they're not that anymore. They had a couple of good running backs, and those are gone now. So this is the thing, is that you mentioned it, I don't know what this team is anymore. And I think that maybe Luke Fickell, this might be his last season. There is some, again, at Alabama, what is that spread even going to be? I don't even know. That's going to be ugly. What number would that even have? It's probably going to be something like 20, 21, but they don't cover that. That's not even a question, though. Yeah. That's the thing. So, at Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, at Indiana, there's so many games here that it's not even going to be close. Now, maybe they could do something. I don't know. But, their quarterback's worse than last year. Their offensive coordinator's probably worse than last year. They weren't good last year, and they've arguably gotten worse. So I don't know what else to say, really, about this team.
And the schedule is much tougher.
Yeah,
I mean,
Phil has them as the number one the hardest schedule in the country.
There's certain programs where there's one way to win there because it's always how it's been. It's just the identity of the program. It transcends coaches, and you
your hoops team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what is Purdue without a big tall guy in basketball, right? And you don't come in and mess with it. And unfortunately, that's what Fickell tried to do. And I think it's going to be what ends this for him. Whether it's this year, it's weird because it's this is a passionate fan base. Wisconsin football was as a kid, we went to Madison to watch the Badgers. You didn't go to Milwaukee to watch the Brewers. You went to Madison to watch the Badgers. This is a very proud fan base. And it's weird because part of the thing that makes me think Fickell could be fine even in a disaster 3-9 season is that the fan base just feels apathetic right now. It's where Michigan State was at the end of the Mel Tucker thing, where it was just whatever. And that is the worst place to be as a fan base. To lose care, that sucks. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, and with this schedule, it's not even an in-season firing turns it around because it just. You can't have the
Okay, he loses by 20 to Oregon, and are you gonna fire him? Well, okay, what's the interim guy gonna do?
Yeah. Jeff Grimes is gonna turn it around against Washington and Indiana. No, not gonna happen. Yeah, the thing that's really a shame too is he had such a good identity at Cincinnati, and he blew it on Phil Longo. Doesn't fit him at all. It's what a dumb way to go.
Yeah, but the thing too is, it was a bad hire because Phil Longo's not good at coaching, and that's reflected by the fact that he's coaching Sam Houston State, everybody's favorite wins under and bet against the spread team.
Particularly now, yes.
Yeah, but the fact that you went straight to Phil Longo, it's not even me questioning what you were doing in terms of misevaluating a coordinator. It told me right away, no, we're going to throw the ball and be an air raid team. So you went against the identity of your program, and then you hired a guy who's bad at going against the identity of your program.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, Wisconsin people, I love you anyways. Okay, that brings us to our two Big Ten wrap-up questions. Isaiah, I'll give you first shot at the one upset involving a Big Ten team.
Yeah, I'm going to go all the way to the last week of the season. I like Washington to beat Oregon. Wow. It might not be an upset at that point, but right now it is. I think that'll be a really fun game just from an offensive standpoint. But I think that if there is any doubt in Washington at that point, if they haven't scored their Ohio State win or their Michigan win or whatever, that's where it comes and says, yeah, this team is for real.
Robert, I don't think he stole that one from you.
No. But he stole the team though.
Okay.
Because
Go
I
ahead.
like Washington over Ohio State.
That was the one I wanted. I really want to take ULM over Northwestern, but I'm going to make it unanimous. I'm going to take Washington over Michigan.
My second choice, I had another one ready in case somebody took Washington over Oregon. So I don't know if I could sell you on this, but can I sell you on Iowa over Penn State?
Oh my God. I think I'll put it this way. I think that's steeped in the institutional knowledge that Robert and I are still in
Yeah.
acquisition mode
That
of.
is a very Big Ten fan who has watched Big Ten games and
Yes.
is afraid of Iowa at night at Kinnick Stadium against good teams. Not because Iowa is better than them, but because dumb things happen.
Okay. Conference title game. Robert, you go first on this one.
This one is tough.
It's really tough.
I want to say. Let me just check to see if they play in the regular season. I think they do, right? Yeah. Give me Oregon, Indiana.
Interesting. Against, yeah, I'm going to regret this. I like your Indiana. I'm going with that. I'm going to cover my face when I say it. Against Penn State.
Yeah, I know. I knew that's where you were going.
I know.
It's funny because I'll say this, sorry Isaiah, but I literally pick Indiana specifically because I think Indiana will beat Penn State and that will be the difference to get into the championship game.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think that's a good point. I'm also going to cover my face in shame because I'm also going to take Penn State. But but I don't care who they're playing because they're going to lose the game. So it's
There
fine.
you go.
This sounds really weird because it's a rehash. I'm going to take them against Oregon. I'm going to go for a rematch. And I think the same result is going to happen. And my thinking is I don't feel bad about it because last year I had Oregon, Ohio State. So I'm not picking the same thing as I did last year. But I like Oregon's schedule. Even if they do regress, I still think they are best set up to not lose 2 Big Ten games, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep.
And the reason I like Penn State is because they have 2 games where they have the 2 James Franklin games, right? Where I say, yeah, those are the ones you probably lose. And maybe they do lose to Indiana and Indiana sneaks in or whatever. But 10-2 should be enough to get them in because I think Ohio State's going to regress. So give me Oregon and Penn State, and then give me Oregon doing what you would expect to do to Penn State.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have 3 teams, each with two among us. 2 Oregons, 2 Indianas, and 2 Penn States. I'm wondering, do they all play each other? Oregon and Penn State? Yeah.
Oregon and Penn
It
State
looks
play
like-
each other. Oregon and Indiana play each other. Penn State and Indiana.
And Indiana play each other.
We could have a really fun circle of suck here.
Yeah, but it makes sense. I don't know, it's interesting. We had, I'm just looking against Phil here. So Phil had Ohio State number 2, so we made a strong case against them.
Man, that's going to blow up in our face if Ohio State is actually
Well-
judging again.
Or alternatively, and we will close on this, by like week 5 or 6, we might just be calling them Matt Patricia's defense and the Ohio State Buckeyes, if it's going like the way we're thinking.
Man, imagine if I was looking at the numbers here. If they lose to Texas week 1, and they lose to Washington in week nominally 5, it's their 4th game. All the morning shows are going to be opening, and there's going to be the banner Ohio State 2-2. Like that's going to be like,
Nope.
wow.
Return of the lunatic fringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be like which coordinator gets fired because Ryan Day can't do it with a natty. But it'll be Matt Patricia. The Matt Patricia talk, I think, is going to be a hot October topic. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Isaiah, great to catch up with you. We will be in touch postseason as always. Robert, I will see you shortly as we do what's next. SEC, I believe, is the next one. So thank you all for being with us. We will see you in that pod of the SEC. Until then, bye-bye.